And action. Again, welcome everybody to our ongoing series, Academic Success and Beyond. Today's session is specifically focusing on effective communication with your professor, and we are going to talk about a variety of topics. But let's first do some introductions. With me today is...
My name is Mary Kate Moskal. I'm a TRIO advisor here at the Des Plaines campus. A little bit about TRIO. We are a program supporting first-generation college students, students that may have a registered disability and or maybe income eligible. So if any of those three criteria apply to you, please stick around after. My contact information will also be on the last slide. I can share more with you about the TRIO program, how to get involved, the great resources that we have. I do see some students that are on right now that are in TRIO. Woo woo! Love seeing you and your support. But since it's a micro session, I'm going to keep it moving. So, Tom,
awesome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom Hicks. I am Manager of Academic Success and Support here at the Learning Center. And like Mary Kate said, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Woo-hoo.
All right. What are we going to accomplish today? Well, in our short time together, we want to do 5 specific things. First things first, we want to talk a little bit again and review key aspects of your syllabi that are going to help you for effective communication. Second, we're going to talk about some healthy strategies that you can implement with your professor or professors this semester and in semesters down the way. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about some ice-breaking questions that you can initiate to ask your professor to again help build that relationship between you and them. In addition to that, we're going to touch on how to ask for a letter of recommendation. And then last but not least, we'll touch briefly, ever so briefly, on managing challenging communications if it's related to grades.
Right, let's do it. So first part, effective communication, key pillar, and really building those great relationships with your professors and instructors. So know that every syllabus that you see will have some type of template like this at the top. Now, this is going to be the contact information when you can reach the professor. So obviously office hours are really important because that is the time that the professor is setting aside to answer questions, talk to you, maybe help you with a letter of recommendation, support you with questions from the class, etc. So you can see this professor shared with us their information. So Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, that's a lot of availability. I appreciate that. And varying times. So a lot of professors are going to try to accommodate students with maybe a few days a week that are in the morning, a few days a week that are in the evening, just like you can see here. Also, if you read down at the bottom, it says also by appointment. So even if the office hours do not fit your schedule, you have a very hectic schedule, you're doing 10 million things at once, like most of us, reach out. That's what this is about, communicating. Your professor won't know that unless you send them an email, talk to them after class, etc. So please don't be afraid to ask and let them know, hey, none of these office hour times work for me. Is there another time that might work best? Definitely write down their email, phone number. It's kind of nice here. You can also see that they are listing a phone number that's accessible, via phone call and leaving a voicemail or a message. They're also sharing their phone number, which not all professors are going to do this, but in this case, they're setting a boundary of text only. So whatever the professor, their preferences, please respect that. And you can always ask them more questions if you do have them. All right, so moving on from effective communication, we're going to talk a little bit about the course calendar. So again, every syllabus should have some type of calendar listed. Why is this important? Well, you're a busy adult. You have a lot going on. So it'd be great if you could do some planning on the front end. So the first week of January, you got your syllabus. Maybe you're taking a late start class in March. What a great idea that you can actually write down when your assignments are due. Maybe big projects, big assessments, things that are going to take a lot of time and energy. Write those down. We have another great session that's going to be talking about organization and budgeting your study time. We'll share a lot of strategies for that. So know that the sample course calendar, in this case, the course calendar is important. Highlight it, take a picture, add it to your own calendar, and make those adjustments.
Yeah, the other piece of that puzzle too, when it comes to the course catalog, or the course calendar, is what other things outside of the institution do you have going on that may cause a conflict? I'll give you a perfect example. I myself am going to be traveling abroad not during spring break, but alternative spring breaks. Now, again, you should hopefully plan accordingly if you're going to go away for a spring break or any type of breaks. But, maybe there's something that you can miss. Your brother is getting married and you need to attend that. So you may miss a class period. That's a great conversation because you know that calendar ahead of time to talk to your professor about, hey, here's what's coming up. I know already in April, I'm going to have to miss that Thursday and Friday class because I'll be traveling to go to my brother's wedding, so on and so forth.
Great point. I'm gonna pass this one to you too, Tom.
Awesome. So here we have a little exercise for you. So again, one of the biggest ways that we're communicating with our faculty member is via email. So let's take a look at this sample email. I want you to take a minute or two to review it. What does this email say about the student? And how would you rewrite this? This is not a trick question. We're absolutely going to rewrite this. So again, for those of you, I'll read it out loud to Professor Borja from socksrule@yahoo.com. Subject is help. Body is, hey, I missed class today. Bummer. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss anything important, but if I did, please let me know. THX exclamation point sent from a phone.
So bad.
Soup spilled. No cap. So I'll let you, 30 seconds more. If you want to put in the chat or unmute yourself, what are some things that are wrong right off the bat about this email communication to this professor?
Well, first of all, he's a Sox fan, so that's a problem.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit, Kelly?
Yeah, I said, first of all, he's a Sox fan, so that's a problem.
Exactly. I mean, we're pro Sox in my house, but
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're a Cubs fan. That already, I mean, as silly as that is, you may want to think about what email address you're sending it from. Now, the beauty is, as an Oakton student, you have an @oakton.edu email address. In the soon to near future, we're going to make that required business practice that everybody is using their Oakton.edu address. So it's great to get into that habit of actually using it. Let's see, check. Definitely, okay, informal writing, yes. Subject line is too vague, yeah. Now, we had this, a couple tabbed out so these things would magically appear. But again, it's important in the subject line, things that are really important, your name, class, section, and if there's a specific topic that you want to talk about in your email, are great pieces of information that you can add into that subject line. Yes, disrespectful. I love it, Natalia. Let's just put it this way. Even if your professor is an adjunct and they work outside, they have a passion for teaching the class that they're teaching. That's why they're doing it. So everything that they're instructing you on is important. So I would probably rephrase that. In this particular case, I would maybe explain why I missed class. Hey, I missed class today because I was not feeling it. Again, I just saw it pop up in the chat. A greeting, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Those are also pretty good ways to start off that paragraph. Again, be really specific. You have that syllabus. You know exactly what the topics were covered in that section. So, hey, you could be like, Professor so-and-so, I know that today we were talking about orders of operation. Is it possible, can I meet with you during your office hours to talk about some of those key points to orders of operation? Or if those hours don't work and they're eligible, like a sample to be by appointment, maybe throw out some times to talk about them. Again, this is really important for you to create that support network. So if you have one or two other classmates in that section with you that you can kind of bounce off with, that's a great way to connect with them as well about those notes, what you missed, so on and so forth. So again, email's really critical. So no, that's okay.
All right, so looking at some expectations, questions to ask your professor. Anyone want to share in the chat or in the room? What are some things that are good to really get to know your professor and maybe some of their communication styles? Anything from the chat or the room? What do we think?
Sorry, when they have office hours, and if they have office hours, and then best way to communicate to them, like email, phone, fax. Not fax. But
Yeah, maybe though, but that would be tough. That would be tough, yes. Thank you for sharing. So yes, in the room talking about when are office hours, what's the best way to communicate? We saw that example. One of the professors shared that they like to be texted on a certain number, but called on maybe their official office number at Oakton. So those pieces are going to be really important. I think this is great too. How are we going to address this? Someone wrote it, Kelly.
Yeah.
Nice. How do they want to be addressed? This can be really important.
Mhm.
A lot of professors have earned their doctoral degree, and that's a lot of work and a lot of time. And I'm sure they're really proud of that. So some professors are really going to require or ask that you call them Dr. Moskal, whatever it might be. Professor, their first thing, you might find some professors that are a little bit more casual, relaxed. It's always good to ask. If you don't know the answer, you can certainly ask, and they'll be happy to share with you their preferred kind of introduction. Other pieces here, some resources. Maybe there's a supplemental technology that could really support you. Sometimes even YouTube videos, Khan Academy, things like that can be really useful in supporting your learning and the content of the material. This is a good one. Opportunities for research in your instructor or professor's field. Sometimes they might be looking for someone that is eager and excited to really get involved in that field of study. Are there internships? Are there jobs? Are there volunteer opportunities where you could get some really good hands-on experience in that job field or career field you're looking at? Awesome. We talked about this, preferred communication, office hours, all of that information is really important. As well as, and this is again, likely should be in the syllabus, but if it's not clear, these are questions you want to know. Attendance, how does that count towards your grade? If you're out sick, does that mean you lose 10% of your grade? How does that work? What is the grading scale? How are assignments and quizzes? How are they weighted? What does that look like? Are those 5-point assignments each week worth more than the final at the end of the semester or vice versa? Where do I need to be dedicating my time and my energy? Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Are there any rubrics for assignments? You can really see spelled out how the professor is going to be assessing you, how they're going to be grading you on that assignment. Maybe there's examples too from past semesters or past years that you could look at. Also very important, policies for late work and extensions. Now, this is not universal. This is not across the college that, yes, you get to make up work and you get 1 day, you get 5 days, etc. It is up to the professor's discretion. Okay, so that's really important. Don't assume I can turn this in late or I get an extra week. That may not be the case. So very important that you have this, right?
And it's okay too. I'll give you a perfect example. So going into the spring semester, my final year in undergrad, I knew that there were going to be a couple weeks out of the semester where I would not be able to get to class. So I knew I was going to be job searching, and there was a couple specific things I had to go to out of state. So after I registered for classes in the fall, I knew who my faculty members were. And I had a conversation with each one, explaining to them, hey, there's something that's called the placement exchange, where I thought I was going to work in housing. But that was a week, and I knew I was going to miss that class. I knew I had to interview for some of the grad schools. So I already went in letting them know that and talking about what those expectations were to let them know, hey, I really wanted to be in this class. Here's where I can sort of juggle the assignments and what's due. You know, in those cases, I had a good enough relationship where I automatically, before the semester started, asked for incompletes for all of my classes, knowing that I may not be able to get everything on time. Long story short, didn't need it, but preemptively, you can have those conversations even before the semester starts, especially if you know who that professor is.
Oh, I think I clicked
Oh
on
my
it.
gosh.
Clicked on a link.
It's all
Okay,
good.
there we go. Okay.
All right. Again, you know, it's a two-way street, absolutely, between you and your professor. And we just wanted to share with some things that, how do you create healthy relationships with your professor? So to the best of your ability, be respectful in class and in communications. Again, we gave you just a snippet of what a probably informal and disrespectful email was, so that you don't make that mistake in the soon to near future. To the best of your ability, you know, speak up in class, share your opinion, share your thoughts. And I know for some of you, that's hard. You know, shocker here, it's not very difficult for me to speak up my mind in various situations. But there could be a scenario where you think of something because you need time to let it marinate, sink in, think about things. But in the middle of the night, if you have a thought about something that was discussed in class yesterday, the week before, feel free, shoot your professor an email. Let them know that you're engaging with the material because it may not present itself in speaking up in class. If there are any study sessions, absolutely go to it. Right? You know, sometimes your professor may have a study session in lead up to an exam, midterm, or final. Go. The other thing, as we mentioned in our first session, was being prepared, right? Really looking at that syllabus as that playbook and understanding what's coming next. So you're not taken aback like, oh my gosh, this class period, we're going down to the library because we're going to learn about the specific LibGuide that your professor and the libraries work together to construct. Certainly be respectful of boundaries, right? You know, that's a lot, right? And then be aware of relationship boundaries. You know, you may know the professor through your, you know, personal thing. I always find it kind of interesting with some of my kids' teachers. There are neighbors, right? And there's that boundary, right? That you have to sort of toe the line, but just understand what those healthy relationships look like.
Right. So we kind of touched on this, and I know we want to get to everything. But these are just some things that you can ask to just build the relationship, ask those questions, get involved. If anyone wants to take a picture of this, you're welcome to do that. We also post these after, so you're welcome to get all these informations. But just a little conversation starter. Open up the conversation and see where it goes.
Yeah. The other piece of the puzzle too is, okay, so things are going great. You know, let's say you get an A in this class, you rock that, or a high B. Sooner or later, you may come to the crossroads where you need to ask for various letter of recommendations, whether it's for a job, you're transferring to a four-year institution, whatever the case may be. Think about it very similar as office hours. So you're going to want to schedule a meeting. You're going to be a little direct, and it's okay to be direct. You know, do you know me well enough to serve as a reference, right? And is it the correct person you're getting the reference from? So perfect example, Mary Kate's awesome. Way back when I was advisor, I was awesome. But a lot of times when they were looking for grad school applications, they explicitly wanted somebody to talk about your academic performance. Now, on the aggregate, I could say, yes, you know, this student got A's in all their marketing courses. They were well planned. They didn't have to repeat any classes, but they want to know specifically inside the classroom how that's materializing. So again, know who that person is you're asking for the recommendation is, and does that meet the criteria for whatever they're looking for, employment, transferring, graduate school, so on and so forth. The other thing, as we've got your syllabus, I really want you all to keep at least one or two artifacts, the syllabus being one, and hopefully a presentation, a paper, maybe a portfolio or a project. Just working with a student in a Java class. So their project at the end of the semester is to do some pretty intense coding. Now that's going to be saved. So if they transfer on to a four-year institution, they can have that project. So it's easy to say where or what that specifically looked at. And then certainly, last but not least, always thank them, right? A thank you and a follow-up are really great pieces of that puzzle. So thank you for writing the recommendation and then follow up. Guess what? Woo! I'm going to Northwestern. Awesome. Congratulations. Let them know because that makes them feel good about the work that they did because they probably put a lot of time and effort into writing that recommendation, and to see the fruits of their labor, it warms the heart. I assure you that.
All right, so some things that might come up and it's okay, but just know that this happens, right? So if you are maybe not satisfied with your grade, or maybe you thought you deserved a better grade than what you got on that midterm paper, there are some routes that we can take. We're gonna kind of briefly talk about those with you today. So something that is important is to really make sure you're referring back to the syllabus. That's the contract between you and the professor saying, here's what we agreed to do for this semester. We talked about grades, assignments. Yes, if maybe there's a misunderstanding about the requirements, the feedback, is it possible to turn it in late, things like that. I know materials, some classes do still require a textbook, whether online or, a physical textbook, lab kits, the arts, there's a lot of actual tangible items that you might need. Attendance, punctuality, and presence. So if you arrive 2 minutes late, does that count as tardy, or is there a grace period? What does it look like if you leave class early? How do you share that information? Group interactions. Maybe you felt like a professor is favoring a certain student or different groups, and you're not really sure how to go about addressing that situation. And then also just, of course, personal and professional boundaries. So there are cases, of course, where we need to be brought to the next level and really have our team here at Oakton address those situations with bias, discrimination, microaggressions. Any of those pieces are really important that they be taken seriously and that we make sure that the student, those things are investigated. So I think the next slide is going to talk about the process. Do you want to take this one?
Sure. So again, with all of those things that we just listed, the easiest way for you to help sort of mitigate that conflict is, again, listen to understand, right? Especially when you think about the rubric, right? Did you understand it? They're the person who is creating that rubric. Asking them questions and follow-up questions are really important. Identify what's the key issue, right? What is the root cause that you're trying to get to? Express what your thoughts are as clearly as possible. How can you use this as an opportunity for growth, right? So you learn from what happened previously. If everybody's just finished watching True Detective season 4, maybe time is a flat circle. I don't know. I don't necessarily think we're all doomed to keep repeating ourselves. So think about the opportunities for growth. Again, focus on those specific issues. And then, again, when in doubt, if you're confused about what's going to be on the exam, what you should study to, hit the return button, go back to the learning objectives for each and every one of your classes. That's going to help you focus on where your energy and attention should go to, is those learning objectives. Yep.
Okay, so we can share more about this too if anyone has any specific questions, but there are official processes to support you for our code of conduct at Oakton. So there are a few channels to go through. Typically, right, we start with it's bottom of the totem pole with the instructor, the chair of that department. Then it goes to the dean of that specific division, then the vice president of academic affairs. So there is kind of a line or a hierarchy to go through, but there is a formal complaint link that you can fill out. You can choose to do that anonymously, or you can list your name and your information. And I have helped students do this, and I will say, this does not go unnoticed or unseen. This is important to the college. This is important to building a great community. So know that if you do report a complaint, something does come out of it. Might not be what you want, but something will happen. Okay.
And then the Yelp of it all. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I am looking to eat at a new restaurant, I pull up my phone, I pull up the Yelp ad, and I try to take a look at photos of what it's going to look like, or actual reviews of the food. So there are many different websites out there that talk a little bit about who the professors are. You know, use that with a grain of salt, but they are out there, right? And think about it yourself. You know, what works for you may not work for another. You know, you may have a student who really has been coached along to be in a class where, you know, there's PowerPoints that they can print out for all the lectures and they're able to record. And the next professor may not do that. That doesn't make that other professor a bad one. It's a different learning environment too. So really kind of take with a grain of salt the difficulty level, quality. Again, as we talked about a little bit last week, there's so many different learning styles. You know, are a visual person. Well, if you're a visual person and you're in a class that's all lectures, well, Jiminy Crickets, that may not work for you. Conversely, if you're, you know, somebody who really wants to get in there with your hands, you may excel at, you know, being in an A&P class and being able to touch the cadaver, come to the Learning Center to check out some of our models, so on and so forth. So again, it is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes you can like really read in if there's a vendetta or somebody who's really out to get somebody, but it's there. Think about that. And yeah, certainly ask your peers, I think is also a good expectation. So that was our quick micro session, boat show. We're gonna be back next week, Thursday. We're gonna do a redux of our first session. Now, again, if you didn't come to the first session, that's cool. But it's going to be on, again, strategies for a flexible learning environment. So we're going to try to capture all those students who are in an 8-week class that's going to start sometime in March to help them get off on the right feet. And then we'll be back in March with our trifecta of critical thinking, budgeting your study time, and test-taking strategies, which, you know, as we transition into April and May, those are probably our 3 biggest attended classes. So they really go hand in hand and build off of one another. I'm going to stop the record button.